Shalom Aleichem, brethren and sisters, in Yeshua Hamashiach. Please, let us thank Yahweh. Let us give thanks to Almighty Yahweh that we are still alive in Yeshua Hamashiach's name. Please, I'm Rabbi Ebenezer Ankarpong-Nuamah, and my religion is Judaism religion, because Judaism religion is from Yahweh. But according to Judaism religion, the Jews don't believe in Yeshua Hamashiach. But why I, Rabbi Ebenezer Ankarpong-Nuamah, believes in Yeshua Hamashiach in Judaism? You know, Yeshua is called the Hamashiach in Matthew chapter 1, verse 16. In fact, every time someone says Yeshua Hamashiach, he is referring to Jesus as the Messiah, since Hamashiach or Hamashiach is anointed one. The Old Testament predicts the Hamashiach, and the New Testament reveals the Hamashiach to be Yeshua of Nazareth. There are several things that the Jewish people who anticipated the Hamashiach expected him to be, based on Old Testament prophecies. The Hamashiach would be a Hebrew man, according to Isaiah chapter 9, verse 6, and born in Bethlehem, according to Micah chapter 5, verses 2, and of a Virgin Mary, according to Isaiah chapter 7, verses 14, and a prophet akin to Moshe, according to Deuteronomy chapter 18, verses 18, and a priest in the order of Melchizedek, according to Psalm chapter 110, verses 4, and a king, according to Isaiah chapter 11, verses 1 to 4, and the son of David, according to Matthew chapter 22, verses 42, who suffered before entering his glory, according to Isaiah chapter 53. You know, Yeshua HaMashiach met each of these messianic requirements. Yeshua HaMashiach fulfilled the requirements of the Hamashiach in that he was a Hebrew of the tribe of Judah, according to Luke chapter 3, verses 30. And he was born in Bethlehem, according to Luke chapter 2, verses 4 to 7. And to a Virgin Mary, according to Luke chapter 1, verses 26 to 27. And please, another proof that Yeshua was the Hamashiach is the fact that he was a prophet like Moshe. Both Moshe and Yeshua were prophets, whom the Lord Yahweh knew face to face, according to Deuteronomy chapter 34, verses 10, and John chapter 8, verses 38. But Yeshua HaMashiach is an even greater prophet than Moshe in that while Moshe delivered Israel from slavery, Yeshua HaMashiach frees us from the bondage of death and sin. So, Yeshua HaMashiach is the son of Yahweh. But please take note, he is not Yahweh himself, no, but he is the son of Yahweh. If you read John chapter 10, verses 30, it is there. So Yeshua HaMashiach doesn't just lead us to the promised land, but he takes us up to heaven for eternity. If you read John chapter 14, verses 1 to 3, it is there. For this and many more reasons, Yeshua HaMashiach is a prophet greater than Moshe. The Hamashiach was to have priestly duties, But Yeshua Hamashiach too was not a Levite, and only Levites were allowed to be priests. So how could Yeshua Hamashiach qualify? Yeshua is a priest in the order of Melchizedek according to Genesis chapter 14 and Psalm chapter 110 verses 4 and Hebrews chapter 6 verses 20. Melchizedek predated the Jewish temple, and his very name means King of Righteousness. Melchizedek was also called the King of Salem, which means King of Peace, according to Hebrews chapter 7 verses 2. So Melchizedek blessed Abraham, the greater blesses the lesser, according to Hebrews chapter 7 verses 7. And Abraham gave Melchizedek a tithe. Thus, as a priest in the order of Melchizedek, Yeshua HaMashiach is greater than Abraham. If you read John chapter 8 verses 58, it's there. And the Levitical priesthood, he is a heavenly priest who offered a sacrifice that removes sin permanently. Not just temporarily covers it, no, but permanently. So Yeshua HaMashiach must also be a king in order to be the Hamashiach. Yeshua was from Judah, the tribe of Judah, that's the kingly tribe. So when Yeshua was born, wise men from the east came looking for the king of the Jews, according to Matthew chapter 2 verses 1 to 2. Yeshua thought that he would one day sit on a glorious throne, according to Matthew chapter 19 verses 28 and Matthew chapter 25 verses 31. Many people in Israel saw Yeshua as their long-awaited king and expected him to set up his rule immediately, according to Luke chapter 19 verses 11. Although Yeshua's kingdom is currently not of this world, according to John chapter 18 verses 36. So at the end of Yeshua's life, during his trial before Pilate, Yeshua did not defend himself except to answer affirmatively when Pilate asked if he was the king of the Jews, according to Mark chapter 15 verses 2. Another way Yeshua fits the Old Testament description of the Hamashiach is that he was the suffering servant of Isaiah chapter 53. On the cross, Yeshua was despised and held in low esteem, according to Isaiah chapter 53 verses 3. And he was pierced, according to verses 5, and oppressed and afflicted, according to verses 7. He died with teeth, yet was buried in a rich man's tomb, according to verses 9. And if you read Mark chapter 15 verses 27 and Matthew chapter 27 verses 57 to 60. So after his suffering and death, Yeshua the Hamashiach was resurrected, according to Isaiah chapter 53 verses 11. And if you read 1 Corinthians chapter 15 verses 4, it is there. And glorified, if you read Isaiah chapter 53 verses 12, it is there. So Isaiah chapter 53 is one of the clearest prophecies identifying Yeshua as the Hamashiach. It is the very passage that the Ethiopian eunuch was reading when Philip met him and explained to him about Yeshua, according to Acts chapter 8 verses 26 to 35. So there are other ways in which Yeshua is shown to be the Hamashiach. Each of the feasts of the Lord Yahweh in the Old Testament is related to and fulfilled by Yeshua. When Yeshua came the first time, he was our Passover lamb, according to John chapter 1 verses 29, and our unleavened bread, according to John chapter 6 verses 35, and our first fruits, according to 1 Corinthians chapter 15 verses 20. So the pouring out of Yeshua's Spirit happened at Pentecost, according to Acts chapter 2, verses 1 to 4. So when Yeshua the Hamashiach returns, we will hear the shouts of the archangels and the trumpets of Yahweh. It is no coincidence that the first fall festival day is Yom Torah, that is the Feast of Trumpets. So after Yeshua's return, he will judge the earth. This is the fulfillment of the next fall festival, that's Yom Kippur, and that's the day of atonement. Yes. So then Yeshua will set up his millennial kingdom and reign from the throne of David for 1,000 years. That will complete the final fall festival, Sukkot, or the Feast of Tabernacles, when Yahweh dwells with us. So to those of us who believe in Yeshua as Lord and Savior, the proof that he is the Jewish Hamashiach means overwhelming. How is it that, generally speaking, the Jews do not accept Yeshua as their Hamashiach? Both Isaiah and Yeshua prophesied a spiritual blindness upon Israel as a judgment for their lack of faith, according to Isaiah chapter 6, verses 9 to 10, and Matthew chapter 13, verses 13 to 15. Also, most of the Jews of Yeshua's time were looking for a political and cultural savior, not a savior from sin. They wanted Yeshua to throw off the yoke of Rome and establish Zion as the capital of the world, according to Acts chapter 1, verse 6. They could not see how the meek and lowly Yeshua could possibly do that. The story of Joseph provides an interesting parallel to the Jews missing their Hamashiach. Joseph was sold into slavery by his brothers, and after many ups and downs, he was made prime minister of all of Egypt. When a famine hit both Egypt and Israel, Joseph's brothers traveled to Egypt to get food, and they met with Joseph, but they did not recognize him. Please take note of it. Their own brother standing right in front of them, yet they were oblivious. They did not recognize Joseph for a very simple reason. He did not look as they expected him to look. Joseph was dressed as an Egyptian. He spoke as an Egyptian. He lived as an Egyptian. The thought that he might be their long-lost brother never crossed their minds. Joseph was a Hebrew shepherd. After all, not Egyptian royalty. In a similar way, most Jewish people did not and do not recognize Yeshua Hamashiach as their Hamashiach. Yes. They were looking for an earthly king, not the ruler of a spiritual kingdom. Many rabbis interpret the suffering servants of Isaiah chapter 53 as the Jewish people who have suffered at the hands of the world. Their blindness was so great that no amount of miracles made a difference, according to Matthew chapter 11, verses 20. Still, there were many in Yeshua's day who saw the truth about Yeshua. The Bethlehem shepherds saw, according to Luke chapter 2, verses 16 to 17. And Simon in the temple saw, according to verses 34. And Anna saw and spoke about the child to all who were looking forward to the redemption of Jerusalem, according to verses 38. And Peter and the other disciples saw, according to Matthew chapter 16, verse 16. So please continue to see that Yeshua is the Hamashiach, the one who fulfills the law of the prophets, according to Matthew chapter 5, verses 17. So it's Yeshua Hamashiach who fulfills the law. He didn't break the law. He came to fulfill it, but he did not come to break the law. So Yeshua Hamashiach is the Messiah, the Hamashiach or Hamashiach. So please let us understand. Thank you.